Hey, hi, and welcome to A Taste of Fusion, and I am making an iftari menu yet again. I'm starting off with glorious little vegetarian lettuce wraps, a little mix of vegetables, a little blast of soya, and of course cumin as the base. For my main course, I'm taking chops spiced up with all our local indigenous spices, and I'm serving them up a la tomato and basil style, which is very modern European. And for dessert, apricots which are in season, buttered down, whipped up with some cream in the form of an apricot fool. And I'm gonna wash it all down with a lovely tangy plum fizz. Well, that's enough of me talking about it. I've got to go pick up my veg, get back to the kitchen and get cooking. Right, now to get started with my appetizer, which is a lettuce wrap. Now technically this comes from Southeast Asian cuisine, where you get lettuce and you wrap it up with a lovely little filling. Usually it's got some meat in it, a little bit of veg, and different forms of spices. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to use cumin as my base, or zira. That means it's our local spice, it's something that's fusion, and I'm going to bridge the gap between the subcontinent and the Southeast Asians. All right, now, before I get started, let me get my pan on a high heat. There we go. Now, I'm going to pour in some extra virgin olive oil, about 3 tablespoons. Let the oil heat up, and very, very quickly, straight in, I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of chopped ginger, 2 teaspoons of chopped spring onion, sliced actually, but it should do. Now, this is super fast, you've got to move very, very quickly. Then 4 teaspoons of chopped carrot, diced quite fine. It's called an allumette piece, this. And 2 teaspoons of potato, again diced small. I'm going to fry these up first. I'm going to let the potatoes and the carrots caramelize because they take the longest amount to cook. And I put a little spring onion in at this moment because it needs to lend its flavor to the potatoes and the carrots. Okay, now as it's frying, I'm going to throw in 1 pinch of cumin and a small pinch of salt. This is just to allow the water in the potatoes and the spring onions and the carrot to secrete, to help and aid the cooking process. Once you smell the cumin coming up, just pour in about a teaspoon of soy sauce and quickly stir because the soy sauce can burn. Then, the juice of half a lemon. And here I have some white asparagus tips. Now, I got these out of a can because asparagus, sometimes you get it fresh, sometimes you don't. I prefer the white because I think it's more flavorful. So, half a can of white asparagus with a little bit of the water to aid the cooking. There we go. And mix it in. Turn the heat down because you don't want the soya to keep burning. And then at this point you put in half a can or half a punnet of baby corn. Just to add a different dimension and a little crunch. And of course baby corn is great that way because it takes in all the flavors quite like a sponge, while the asparagus gives it a finesse. I'm going to add a little bit more extra virgin olive oil. And add in another teaspoon of soy sauce. Half a pinch more of salt. And the juice of another half lemon. So in total, 1 lemon in all. Mix it up. Now it's at this point, if you start smelling that asparagus, it's a warm, rounded aroma that comes up. So you add just another, half a scallion of spring onion to bring a little green back, and about 1/4 green chili sliced up. Give it another lashing of olive oil. And just from on top, a little rice vinegar, just a dash. Turn the heat off, put it to the side. and let your filling rest and all the juices intermingle and fuse together. Now, all you have to do now is take a nice big leaf of lettuce, pop it in the center and roll it up at the time of serving. Now it's time to move on to our main course, which are chops with tomato and basil. Right, now for my main course, which are delectable chops. Now chops which are covered with all the spices that we usually have in a fry-up or a grill, and chops that are used and made in curry. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to put them in the oven after they've been coated with all these spices with a little tomato and basil, so you get a little Italian Mediterranean feel happening there. So first of all, I'm going to get my oven dish, which I prepared with a little bit of foil. Then I have these glorious, glorious little chops, and I'm just going to take my knife, give them a little beating, like so, just to tender the meat and break the bones slightly. So just choose some chops with some meat on them. You can get your butcher to get, make you heavier chops, but I find that these are really delicious and they have that completely traditional feel to them. All right, break the meat up. Okay, pop this to the side. Next, I'm going to take a little bit of salt and sprinkle them onto my chops, like that. Half a teaspoon or a large pinch of chili. And this is red chili powder I'm using. Now I've made this garam masala of large cardamom, a little clove, a little black pepper, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on, because I think you need to add, add that weight to the chops. Then a large pinch of cumin. Now this will fall off, so I will add on into the pan when I go in there later. Now to oil it up. A little bit of extra virgin olive oil onto my board. And then just use my hands and muscle everything in like so. Doesn't matter if it goes everywhere, it's the fun of cooking. Get your hands in there. Right, now, take my chops and I'm going to pop them into the pan, like so. There we go. Give your hands a good wipe. And then, now for the fusion element to it. First of all, a little Southeast Asian flavor, and I'm just making my board straight so nothing rolls off too much. Just a little soy sauce. Now, next, I've got some tomatoes that I've quartered here. Now, this is where the Italian and the Mediterranean influence comes in. Fresh tomato around the side. And when these tomatoes go in the oven, they're not going to cook per se the way that you would in a soup or a broth or, putting them on the hob. They're going to actually sun blush. When you get sun-dried tomatoes in a can, they're actually tomatoes that have been sitting out in the heat for 2-3 days until they've shriveled up. You can do the same thing in an oven. The first step, though, is a sun-blushed tomato which has lost half its water. So that's what we're going for today. A little sun blushing. Take a little bit more extra virgin olive oil and drizzle onto my tomatoes like so. I'll pop this here for a minute. And grab a little garlic, which I'm going to slice up. Nothing too fancy. And I'm going to sprinkle that onto my meat. Again, this is something that you would never do in traditional cooking. This is something that is pretty much fusion, and fusion influenced from Italian cooking predominantly, which is also great fun in Ramzan. Next, what am I going to do? I'm going to add a little peach. I'm just going to put the peach on top. What the peach will do is, instead of using lemon or something like that, peach will release an acid, a tanginess, which will permeate through the meat and will become absolutely gorgeous. And finally, for the basil. A basil, what a versatile herb it is. You've got holy basil, you've got Thai basil, you've got sweet basil, you've got basil everywhere. Basil, which is also tulsi and nasbu in our language. It is a lovely little herb that crosses many bridges and conquers many divides. And over here, it's going to add to the Southeast Asian flavor, it's going to add to the local spices that we've got in there, and it's going to add to the Italian Mediterranean feel. And then, just a couple of red chilies that I'm going to crush with my hands and open their seeds up, and break them in like so. A little bit more soya, and just pour it through And that's it. This is going into a preheated oven at 180 degrees for a good 20 minutes. Right, so that's in the oven for a good 20 minutes. Now I'm going to clear up and get on with dessert. Okay, now for dessert, which is an apricot fool. Now, a fool in general is basically whipped cream with something inside it. Usually you get a mango fool, which is lovely and sublime and sweet. It's almost like mousse, but not. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a fusion version of apricot fool, which is going to be a glorious little dessert at iftari time because it's light and it's really refreshing and it's actually not that unhealthy. So, first things first, get a pan on a high flame. And into my pan, I pour very generously 2 large ladlefuls of condensed milk. Yes, I said it's not that unhealthy, but I didn't say it was, well, sweet and really cool and fun to eat. And into that, I'm going to pop in about 3 apricots that I've diced up. Now, I'm going to bring them to a stir, and the condensed milk is in there to basically caramelize the apricots and add that extra sweetness that we require to this dessert. Keep mixing it up, let the apricots start bubbling. Now add 50 mils of milk, I would say. And just let it all start mixing and fusing together, becoming thick and creamy. And it's bubbling beautifully and all that milk has evaporated very, very fast. So again, add in just another 100 mils, gently, and stir it in. Turn the heat down because you don't want the milk and the condensed milk to start burning. Pop in another 2 tablespoons of the apricot, just what you have left. So all in all, about 5 apricots that you have cut up. Lift it off the heat, mix them in, add another 100 mils milk. Just cook it for a little bit longer. Now, I'm just going to turn the heat off and pour in about 4 tablespoons of fresh cream. And I'm doing this at the end because I don't want the cream to curdle. Now, traditionally, I would blend this and I would put a little gelatin in and then set it, but I'm not going to do that because I want the fruit to soak in all the flavors. And right at the end, before I pour it out, I'm going to add in half a tablespoon of condensed milk just as that little extra treat. Mix it all up. And then grab any glass or serving dish that you want, which will look pretty. And instead of the blended version, just pop this in like so. It's just beautiful. There we go. And that's done. Now that's going to cool. And whilst that cools, I'm going to get started on my fantastic plum fizz drink. Okay, now for my plum fizz, something that's really delicious to wash down all this glorious food. I'm going to start off with these plums, and I've got about 6 plums that I've just sliced up, decored, and that's all. I'm just going to pop them into my little blender bowl here. And then I'm going to add half a teaspoon of sugar. You can, of course, use an artificial sweetener if you want, because sometimes you don't want sugar in your drink, or keep it au natural, sans the sugar. Now to blend it up. Right, now that's done. All I'm going to add to it is a little apple fizz here that you can get in a can or in a bottle or from your juicer. Just going to add that in, half a glass. and let that fizz up. You can, of course, use soda or tonic. I like the apple fizz or some form of ginger ale because it might, it adds to the plum. It brings the flavor out. Now, I'm just going to give it a nice little mix. Right, that's it. Now all I need is a glass and ice, and I need to plate up. Right, I'm done cooking and presenting this glorious iftar menu, and I really want to dig in, but I can't, so I'm just going to describe what it's all about right now. Well, my lettuce wrap, which is amazing. It's from Southeast Asia in influence, and I brought in a little Mediterranean cuisine in there and some warmth of our traditional spices in the form of cumin. So you've got a little potato, carrot, spring onion, all the goodness of these vegetables coming through to you. And because it's vegetarian, I think that's an added bonus because come on, we eat so much meat, there's always such fried food, the kebabs, stuff like that, which is really, really heavy. So sometimes you want to have just a plain old lettuce wrap. It's light and it's really yum, and of course your kids are going to go crazy about it. Now for the main course, chops, which I love chops, and I think that they usually serve grilled, fried, something different. These are baked in the oven, they're roasted, they've got some glorious basil flavoring, some tomato, the tartness of the tomatoes coming through, and it's really good finger food actually. You may not serve it like this, you could lay it all out, make a big platter of it, and it's so easy to cook. Just put everything in an oven dish, bung it in the oven and bring it out. And of course, I'm doing my traditional and my signature fusion in there. I've got a little peach in there, so that there's a lovely fruity warmth coming through. And now for dessert, which is my lovely velvety, delicious, light in the mouth and so fun to eat Apricot Fool. It's not a cake, it's not mithai, it's not something that's fried, it's just something that's been heated, the goodness and richness of milk and cream, a little bit of, condensed milk, sugary stuff happening there, and of course fruit, which I think is key. It's, kids gonna love it. Chill it out, make big batches of it, garnish it with, the apricots. If you want to use plum, you can use plum, use peach. You can use any fruit you want that's in season that can, hold texture and secrete sugar out in a particular way. So that's completely delicious and I can't wait to eat that. Now, at the end of all of this, the tirade which has come to an end of my food and my menu, comes my little plum fizz. Does look like falsa juice, doesn't it? But it's not. It's actually plums that are ground down with a little bit of sugar. You can use artificial sweetener, and of course I added in a little apple fizz into this. You could use ginger ale, soda, tonic, as I mentioned before, but I like the taste of apple and plum, and I think it comes together beautifully in the form of an aerated water. And you need to add a little fizz to this because plums can be quite tart, and without the bubbles, they sort of, it'll sort of fizzle out. So add a little fizz into your plums. But that's it. I think I have gone on and on about the food. I'm just gonna take it out, sit outside in the nice weather and wait to break my fast. I suggest you do the same, and remember, if you want to see me fuse something or have any comments, write in on fusion@dawnnews.tv. From myself, take care, and until next time, have fun.